Welcome back to our channel, everyone.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Eric. Today we're diving deep into interpreting visual cues, focusing on how we perceive and describe what we see.
In this episode, we'll explore key vocabulary that enriches our conversations about vision and observation, including gaze at SB/A, spectacular, barely, visible, missed, make S/SB out, stand still, suspiciously, and vanish.
We will break down each term with detailed explanations and plenty of real-life examples.
We have engaging dialogues and practical examples lined up to help you use these words naturally and confidently.
Let's begin with the first term.
Our first word is gaze at SB/A.
Gaze at SB/SH means to look steadily and intently at a person or object, often with admiration or deep concentration.
For example, you might say, I love to gaze at the sunset over the ocean, which implies a calm, thoughtful observation.
You could also use it in a context like, at the museum, visitors gazed at the ancient sculpture for several minutes, conveying a sense of prolonged focus.
And sometimes in personal interaction, someone might remark, he gazed at her as if he had never seen anything so beautiful before, showing admiration through eye contact.
In another context, a teacher might advise a student, when you gaze at the painting, try to notice all the subtle details, encouraging thorough observation.
Similarly, a photographer might say, I often gaze at nature to find inspiration for my shots, suggesting that the act of gazing can be a creative pursuit.
The phrase emphasizes more than just casual looking. It invites deep reflection and engagement with what is being observed.
It's a term that captures the importance of paying close attention to details, whether in art, nature, or human expression.
In everyday conversation, if someone says, she just sat there, gazing at the stars, it conveys a peaceful state of mind and attentiveness.
And when describing moments of wonder, using gaze at SB/SH perfectly communicates the emotion behind the observation.
Our next word is spectacular.
Spectacular is an adjective used to describe something impressively beautiful or dramatic.
For instance, you could say, the fireworks display was absolutely spectacular, meaning it was stunning and captivating.
Another example might be, the view from the mountain was spectacular, with vibrant colors painting the sky at dusk.
This word is often used for scenes or events that leave a lasting visual impression.
It also elevates the description of everyday moments, such as saying, her performance on stage was spectacular, highlighting an exceptional display.
In a dialogue, one might remark, Lisa, that horizon looks spectacular today, clearly conveying a powerful sense of beauty.
And a response could be, yes, Eric, it's one of those moments that makes you stop and truly gaze at the wonders of nature.
Using spectacular can transform a simple observation into a vivid, emotional experience.
It enhances your descriptions and helps you communicate that certain sights are not just seen, but deeply felt.
Think of a sunset described as spectacular. It implies that every element, from the shifting hues to the interplay of light and shadow, is breathtaking.
Such words enrich storytelling and help others visualize scenes with greater clarity and detail.
Let's move on to the word barely.
Barely is an adverb that indicates something happens to an extremely small or minimal extent, almost not at all.
For example, without my glasses, I can barely read the fine print, means that the text is almost invisible to you.
You could also say, the details were barely visible under the dim light, meaning the features were just faintly perceptible.
This term emphasizes scarcity or near absence, adding nuance to descriptions of clarity.
In a dialogue, someone might ask, can you see the sign in the distance? And receive, I can barely make it out, underscoring the difficulty in seeing.
It's a powerful word for emphasizing limitations in perception, whether due to distance, light, or focus.
Barely adds depth to your descriptions, enabling you to express just how small the margin of visibility is.
When you say, he could barely see the outline of the building, it conveys that his vision was almost insufficient to capture the details.
This builds a sense of urgency or concern and highlights the need for adjustments in the viewing conditions.
Now let's discuss visible.
Visible is an adjective that means something can be seen or is clearly perceptible.
For example, the stars were clearly visible in the clear night sky, which indicates no obstructions in viewing them.
Similarly, after cleaning the window, the view became much more visible, emphasizing improved clarity.
Visible is crucial when discussing changes in appearance due to environmental factors.
It helps to establish whether something stands out or fades into the background based on the conditions.
In a scenario where a sign is lit up, one might say, the sign is visible from a mile away, indicating its prominence.
In conversation, someone might remark, "The problem is that the display is not visible enough from here," suggesting adjustments are needed.
This word supports the idea of clarity in vision and makes it easy to discuss how well objects are perceived.
Visible is a fundamental term in describing what the eye can or cannot see clearly.
Next, we have mist.
Mist is a noun that describes a light fog or a suspension of tiny water droplets in the air.
For instance, you might say, a gentle mist settled over the valley at dawn, evoking a soft, diffused light.
Another example is, the street was shrouded in mist, making the lamp posts only barely visible, which connects with our previous word.
Mist not only affects physical visibility, but also creates a mood of mystery or calm.
It sets the stage for moments when clarity is compromised and everything seems softened or blurred.
When discussing outdoor scenes, you might mention, in the early morning, the mist gives the landscape a surreal, ethereal quality, inviting imaginative interpretation.
And in a practical context, one could say, driving in mist requires extra caution because the road is difficult to make out, emphasizing safety.
This word naturally invokes sensory details that can transform a scene from clear to enigmatic.
It's a critical element in describing conditions that directly impact our visual perception.
Next, let's cover make STH/SB out.
Make STH/SB out means to discern or recognize something that isn't immediately clear.
For example, you might say, I can make out the shape of the tree in the distance, even though it is barely visible.
Another example is, it was hard to make out his words because he was speaking softly in the mist, which illustrates difficulty in perception.
This phrase is invaluable when details are obscure, and it emphasizes the challenge of extracting meaning from limited cues.
In conversation, someone might mention, I struggled to make out the number on the clock from across the room, highlighting the need for clarity.
It can also apply to auditory contexts, as in, I could barely make out what he was saying due to the background noise.
Using this phrase signals that an effort was required to decipher or identify something that wasn't immediately obvious.
Let's now move on to stand still.
Stand still means to remain completely motionless, allowing clear observation or capturing a moment precisely.
For example, the photographer asked everyone to stand still to ensure the picture was sharp, which emphasizes the need for stillness.
Another example might be, during the meditation session, we were encouraged to stand still and focus on our breathing, illustrating calmness.
This phrase conveys that sometimes remaining motionless is necessary to avoid distractions and allow for better observation.
It's often used in instructions where any movement might blur or distort what's being observed or recorded.
In a practical scenario, if you are trying to capture a scenic view, you might say, I must stand still for a moment to really take in the details of this spectacular landscape.
That shows the importance of pausing and reflecting in order to capture the full essence of a scene.
Next, we discuss suspiciously.
Suspiciously is an adverb that describes an action done in a way that arouses doubt or distrust.
For example, you might say, he looked suspiciously at the unattended package, meaning his behavior suggested caution.
Another example could be, she suspiciously eyed the stranger, unsure of his intentions, which implies she was wary.
This term helps indicate that certain behaviors or appearances trigger a sense of uncertainty or alarm.
It's used to suggest that something might be amiss, prompting further investigation or attention.
In a dialogue, you could have, "I noticed him suspiciously lingering by the door," to highlight that his presence did not feel normal.
And another scenario might be, when asked about his alibi, he answered suspiciously as if hiding something, which creates a sense of distrust.
Finally, let's talk about vanish.
Vanish is a verb meaning to disappear completely or fade away from sight.
For instance, you might say, "In the thick mist, the outline of the building seemed to vanish," indicating it disappeared from view.
Another example is, as soon as she turned her head, the shadow on the wall vanished, which emphasizes a sudden disappearance.
Vanish is a powerful word that captures the transient nature of visual details.
It can be used both literally and metaphorically, describing how things can quickly cease to be seen or felt.
In everyday conversation, if details are lost in a poor light, you might remark, "The text on the screen vanished as the brightness decreased," illustrating how crucial light is to visibility.
And in a more symbolic context, you might say, "All my worries seemed to vanish when I was immersed in nature," conveying a sense of relief.
That concludes our detailed discussion on today's vocabulary.
We've covered how to gaze at SB/SH with intention, recognize when scenes are spectacular yet sometimes barely visible due to mist, and learn to make SH/SB out even in challenging conditions.
We also explored the significance of taking moments to stand still, noting when someone acts suspiciously, and how things can vanish from sight completely.
Each of these terms helps enrich your ability to describe complex visual experiences and enhances your communication about what you see.
We hope these detailed explanations and examples provide you with practical insights to use these vocabulary words naturally in your conversations about vision and observation.
Practice using these expressions next time you gaze at a stunning view, or notice how details can sometimes be barely visible on a foggy day.
And remember, being able to describe when things vanish or when you must make STH/SB out can add depth to your storytelling and observation skills.
We encourage you to keep exploring your surroundings and to use these words to capture every detail of the world around you.
Thank you for joining us today on this comprehensive journey into the vocabulary of visual perception.
Until our next episode, keep observing, keep learning, and let your eyes tell their own story.
Bye for now.
See you next time, everyone.